It's Monday, the 30th of June. Well, look at that. We've made it to the end of another month. And what a month it was. Welcome to the President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. All right, let's get briefed. Today, we'll start things off with yet another major blow to the Iranian-backed Hamas and its leadership. Israel confirms the death of one of the group's founding members and a key architect of the brutal October 7th attacks. Later in the show, Russia's economy is starting to show cracks. President Putin has announced his intention to slash military spending as recession fears grow. Plus, Ukraine hits Russia with a long-range drone strike targeting a Russian airbase and reportedly destroying Su-34 fighter bombers far from the front lines. And in today's Back of the Brief, Texas cracks down on foreign influence, banning adversaries like China and Russia from buying real estate in the Lone Star State. But first, today's PDB Spotlight. With its war against Iran resolved, well, at least for now, Israel is now shifting its focus back to two familiar fronts, Gaza in the south and the Lebanese border to the north. We'll start in Gaza, where the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, confirmed this weekend that they've killed one of Hamas's founding members, Hakam Mohammed Issa al-Issa, in a targeted airstrike carried out in coordination with the Israeli Security Agency. The strike took place Friday in the Sabra neighborhood of Gaza City. According to Israeli officials, Issa wasn't just symbolic. He remained a senior figure within Hamas's military wing. He served as head of the group's combat support headquarters, directed training efforts, and was a member of its General Security Council. More significantly, the IDF says Issa played a direct role in planning and executing the 7th October massacre and in recent days had helped coordinate attacks on both Israeli civilians and troops operating in the Gaza Strip. He was also leading efforts to rebuild Hamas's damaged command infrastructure. The strike comes just days after one of the deadliest incidents for Israeli forces in months. As we reported last week, 7 IDF soldiers were killed in southern Gaza when their armored vehicle was hit by an explosive device. On Sunday, another soldier was killed during fighting in northern Gaza. But the Gaza Strip wasn't the only focus of Israel's military this weekend. The IDF also turned its attention north, launching one of its largest air campaigns since a ceasefire was signed with Lebanon late last year. On Friday, Israeli fighter jets struck multiple targets in the Beaufort mountain range in southern Lebanon. The main target, according to Israeli military officials, was a Hezbollah command center hidden underground near the village of Tebnit. Witnesses reported at least a dozen airstrikes and explosions on both sides of the Israel-Lebanon border. The IDF released a statement claiming the site was part of a significant underground Hezbollah network that had been knocked offline in earlier strikes, but that the group was attempting to rebuild. Israel says the renewed construction made the site a legitimate military target. Meanwhile, an Israeli drone strike carried out earlier today in the town of Mahrouna reportedly killed Abbas al-Hassan Wabi. He's a senior intelligence officer, or was, in Hezbollah's elite Radwan force. Wabi was allegedly helping restore Hezbollah's operational capabilities and facilitating weapons transfers, a move the IDF called, quote, a blatant violation of the understandings between Israel and Lebanon. Now, there's one more recent development that has basically flown under the radar, but could mark a major turning point in Lebanon. Wali Jumblat, a prominent Druze leader and one of Lebanon's most influential political figures over the past 4 decades, is publicly calling for Hezbollah to hand over its weapons. In a surprising statement, Jumblat said that all arms in Lebanon should fall under state control. He said, quote, there's a new chapter unfolding in the Middle East. If any Lebanese or non-Lebanese party possesses weapons, I hope they will hand them over to the state in a proper manner. Now, that may sound like diplomatic boilerplate talk, but in Lebanon, well, it's a potentially important development. You see, Jumblat has long been seen as a power broker in Lebanese politics and a key ally of Hezbollah. His influence extends far beyond the Druze community, reaching into the political currents of both Lebanon and Syria. For him to break ranks and publicly call for Hezbollah's disarmament, well, is no small matter. It signals growing domestic pressure inside Lebanon as Hezbollah's conflict with Israel threatens to drag the entire country into war. And it may also reflect broader regional realignments, particularly in the wake of the Iran-Israel war, that could push Lebanese leaders to rethink the status quo. For now, Hezbollah remains firmly entrenched in southern Lebanon, but the ground may be starting to shift beneath their feet. All right, coming up next, Russia's economy stumbles, and Ukraine once again takes the fight deep into Russian territory. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Well, one of America's greatest holidays, of course I'm talking about the 4th of July, is just around the corner. And this Independence Day, do your family and friends a favor. Fire up the grill and declare your freedom from average grocery store beef. You want the best beef? Well, make it Tri-Tails. Look, Tri-Tails Beef is a real Texas ranch. It's family-run. It's not some corporate meat factory. They raise pasture-raised, grain-finished black Angus cattle, and they ship the beef straight from their ranch to your door. There's no middlemen, no shrink-wrapped nonsense. Just real American beef from folks who still believe in doing things the right way. And right now, when you order the Freedom Box, they'll throw in a free ribeye. Look, it's officially grilling season. You know that. Do it right with Tri-Tails Beef. Go to trybeef.com/PDB. That's trybeef.com/PDB. Tri-Tails, because you and your family deserve the best. Welcome back to the PDB. Facing economic headwinds and a simmering financial crisis, Russian leader Vladimir Putin has signaled a rare course correction to slash military spending as the Kremlin's war-fueled economy sputters under the weight of sanctions, debt, and a shrinking labor pool. The shift, while still short on specifics, marks one of the most significant recalibrations of Moscow's defense priorities since its full-scale invasion of Ukraine began over 3 years ago. Speaking last week, Putin confirmed that defense expenditures would be reduced, quote, next year and the year after over the next 3-year period. The move follows a series of dire warnings from Russia's top financial minds, with one official bluntly stating the country is, quote, on the brink of going into a recession. Russia's economic development minister sounded the alarm earlier this month, warning of stagnation as key economic indicators, once buoyed by wartime mobilization, began to flatline. The Kremlin's central bank governor, well, he didn't sugarcoat it either, stating, quote, we grew for 2 years at a fairly high pace because free resources were activated, end quote. He added that many of those resources are now exhausted. That exhaustion is now showing up across the board. While official figures claim GDP grew by over 4% last year, inflation has surged and interest rates have remained stuck at 21% since October. That's a suffocating level for most private enterprises. And it's important to point out, I suppose, that the central bank did slightly trim their rates to 20% just this month. But it looks like the damage has already been done. Western sanctions have driven up the cost of imports, stoked inflation, and isolated key sectors of the Russian economy. And the workforce, well, thanks to Putin's invasion, the workforce could be best described as hollowed out. According to Moscow's Higher School of Economics, Russia lost 2.6 million workers in 2024 alone. Much of that attrition stems from mass military conscription and a government-engineered push to funnel labor into the defense sector. To keep the front lines manned, the Kremlin has leaned heavily on outsized salaries and battlefield bonuses. Putin admitted the state now spends more than 13 trillion rubles, or roughly $172 billion annually, on defense, including the war in Ukraine. But the spoils were heavily concentrated and unevenly spread. While defense manufacturers are thriving, the rest of the economy is, well, gasping for air. Private businesses face collapsing demand, spiraling loan costs, and a looming credit crunch. According to Bloomberg, Russian banking officials warn of a full-blown financial crisis by next year, citing an explosion in unsustainable debt and a rise in defaults. Then there's the human cost. Roughly 140,000 soldiers have returned from the front lines, many of them now unemployed. Reintegration remains an open question. Officials expect upcoming budgets to include new programs for veterans, adding yet another drain on state resources already stretched thin. According to Reuters, Putin has grown visibly uneasy about the direction of the war economy. That anxiety is now beginning to creep into public policy. In a bid to further stabilize the books, the Kremlin has begun axing non-military spending, with social programs first on the chopping block. And with President Trump continuing to call for a negotiated end to the war and warning of even harsher sanctions if Moscow refuses to budge, the timing of Putin's announcement is anything but coincidental. All right, sticking with Russia. Ukrainian drones destroyed 2 Russian Su-34 fighter bombers and damaged 2 more in a long-range strike operation over 560 miles from the front lines inside Russian territory. According to Ukraine's General Staff, the overnight Friday operation was spearheaded by the Security Service of Ukraine and Special Forces, with coordination from other military units. The drone attack sparked a fire at the Mariinovka Airfield's technical zone southeast of Moscow. That's a critical area used to prepare aircraft for combat missions. The scope of the attack cannot be understated. For background, the Su-34 has been a linchpin in Russia's air campaign, responsible for launching near-daily missile and bombing raids on Ukrainian cities and frontline troops. The loss of 4 aircraft in a single raid underscores the growing reach and cost efficiency of Ukraine's drone program. Kyiv has now destroyed or disabled 37 Su-34s and 158 Russian aircraft overall since the invasion began back in February of 2022. That's according to the war tracking site Oryx. But the drone blitz came as Ukrainian cities were enduring a fresh wave of Russian retaliation. On Friday alone, Moscow launched a barrage of missiles and Iranian-made Shahed drones, killing at least 10 civilians and injuring more than 50 others. Ukraine's Air Force said it intercepted 21 of the 23 drones. By Sunday, the tempo escalated. Russia launched nearly 480 drones and 60 missiles over the weekend. Ukrainian defenses intercepted 211 drones and 38 missiles, while 225 others were jammed or identified as decoys. A Ukrainian F-16 pilot was killed during the onslaught. The Air Force said he managed to down 7 air targets before his jet, crippled by enemy fire, lost altitude. He veered the aircraft away from residential zones, but was unable to eject in time. Now, this was the 3rd F-16 that Ukraine has lost since deploying the American-made fighters last year. While Kyiv hasn't disclosed its total F-16 fleet, the jets are now integral to Ukraine's defense strategy, especially under waves of sustained aerial warfare. Across 6 Ukrainian regions, those Russian missiles and drones hammered infrastructure. Rail lines in central Ukraine, industrial hubs in the south, and apartment complexes in the west were all hit. Near the Polish border, regional officials reported direct hits on key energy and logistics nodes. Photos on social media showed scorched buildings, shattered windows, and debris scattered in the streets. Ukrainian President Zelensky responded to the weekend attack with a renewed call for Western military aid, particularly for air defense systems. He posted on X, quote, "Pressure on the aggressor is needed, and so is protection." Zelensky added that Ukraine is prepared to purchase additional U.S.-made Patriot missile systems if Washington declines to donate them. That comment comes just days after Zelensky met with President Trump on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Hague. As we reported last week on the PDB, Trump has yet to authorize new aid packages, but said he's considering Ukraine's request for more Patriot batteries. All right, coming up next in the back of the brief, Texas draws a line in the sand, passing a new law that blocks land deals with America's foreign adversaries. I'll have those details next. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, you've likely heard me talking about the upcoming BRICS Nations Summit that'll be taking place in Rio de Janeiro. We are days away from what's been dubbed the Rio Reset, and it potentially is the greatest threat to the U.S. dollar's global dominance in over 80 years. Look, on July 6th, the BRICS nations, and that includes China, and Russia, India, and Iran, and many more, they're expected to unveil their plans to circumvent the U.S. dollar, basically in an attempt to crater the dollar. Now, they've already been laying the groundwork. Their central banks have been methodically divesting from the U.S. dollar and U.S. bonds in favor of gold. So, you ask yourself, how can you protect your IRA or 401k from the fallout from this potential landmark shift? Well, it's a good question. One answer could be to diversify with gold from Birch Gold Group. Look, historically, gold has been a safe haven in times of high uncertainty, and you could consider these current times somewhat uncertain. Get a free information kit on tax-sheltered gold IRAs by simply texting PDB to the number 989-898. Look, July 6 marks a potentially monumental shift among nations that, frankly, control one-third of the world's GDP. Arm yourself with information to diversify your retirement savings. Text PDB to the number 989-898 and claim your free information kit from Birch Gold. In today's Back of the Brief, Texas has joined the ranks of states cracking down on foreign land ownership, barring individuals and entities from adversarial nations from buying up American soil in a sweeping new law. Governor Greg Abbott signed Senate Bill No. 17 into law over the weekend, targeting entities linked to countries flagged in the intelligence community's 2025 annual threat assessment. That would namely be China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. The law prohibits them from acquiring any, quote, real property in Texas, and that umbrella covers farmland, residential lots, commercial hubs, industrial zones, and land tied to mining and water rights. And it takes effect on the 1st of September. Abbott's signature marks more than just a legislative win. It signals Texas's emergence in the growing campaign to roll back foreign acquisition of U.S. assets amid mounting fears of espionage and surveillance. Supporters of the law point to a string of unsettling developments that we've covered here on the PDB, such as the purchasing of land near U.S. military bases by entities associated with the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, Beijing's domination of the American drone market, and a growing foreign presence in critical infrastructure like ports and energy hubs. Michael Lucci, CEO of the national security-focused group State Armor Action, defended the law, stating, quote, Chinese companies purchasing American land, especially near sensitive strategic and military sites, is no coincidence. The CCP is blatantly attempting to base espionage efforts, and potentially worse, right in our backyard, and it's up to the states to act accordingly, end quote. The law does carve out notable exceptions, such as U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents, and legal residents intending to buy a primary home are exempt. Lease agreements under 1 year are also allowed. Enforcement power lies with the Texas Attorney General, and violations reportedly won't be taken lightly, as the statute categorizes them as felonies. And the wave isn't slowing down. According to the Committee of 100, which tracks legislation targeting foreign land ownership, 25 states have now passed laws restricting foreign land purchases, up from 22 back in March. At least 15 more proposals are circulating in Congress. And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Monday, the 30th of June. Now, if you have any questions or comments, just reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And I hope that you managed to find time over the weekend to catch our latest episode of the PDB Situation Report. That's our extended weekend show. Our guests this week included Oded Elam. Now, Oded is the former deputy director of Mossad's global operations. Great conversation, excellent insight from him. To watch that and past episodes, just go to our YouTube channel at President's Daily Brief. And, of course, you can always find the PDB on podcast platforms wherever you get your podcast stuff. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.